guys, I'm Chris and welcome back to this Wednesday's episode of Rift Amps. Hello. Someone once asked me what this is for, and it's for making sure that my satellite dish, Starlink, is level. So here I am up on the roof, up by the roof. A storm knocked it out and then moved it, so now I'm putting it back. It is very windy up here and very, very cold. Are we level? Almost. Too far the other way now. There we go, that'll do it. And we're done. Well, I tell you what, it's cold this morning. It is freezing. We had a massive storm over the weekend, Storm Dara, which has now passed and the temperature's dropped again. My hands just will not warm up. Anyway, time for another little rant. And it's about people using my business as a free storage facility. Now, people are often super keen to get their amps in here, to get in the queue, to get me to look at them, and it's always they're always desperate. It's always, I've got a gig coming up at the weekend, or I really need to get this done, it's urgent, whatever the excuse is. And you always try your best and your hardest to help them out. And I would say probably 4 or 5 times out of 10, the minute the amp is done and fixed, one, they're really slow in paying their bill, and then they don't turn up and collect it for ages and ages, and that annoys me, because I thought the thing was urgent. And I've probably moaned about this before, actually, but it's just the way it is. It's part of the game. Now, what I do is I say to people, you've got 30 days from when I've told you the amp is ready, and that's from when I've sent them the invoice, to collect your amp, or after that day, I charge a storage fee. I'm not a free storage facility. You've got 30 days to collect your amp, and after that day, I charge £12 per day in storage. Now, when you tell people that, they usually buck their ideas up and come and collect quite quickly. And now, it doesn't matter if they've paid their bill or not. Even if they pay their bill immediately, if they leave this thing here, leave their amp here for a month, 30 days, I still charge them. I don't back charge them for that 30 days. On day 31, that's when I start charging from. And I usually give them a week's notice as well. So I'll say, look, in a week's time, storage fees are going to kick in. So, pull your finger out, come get your amp. And that usually sorts it. But you always get one or two, and you get the same excuses every time. Card's broken down, I've had an injury or whatever. Can you look after it? And you say, yeah, no problem, but I have to charge my storage fee. It's the same for everyone. And eventually they find a way to come and get the amp before they get charged. So generally it works quite well. And in fact, I haven't had to charge anyone any storage fees in quite a long time, because by the time you put the pressure on, and that threat of them costing them money usually makes them come and sort it out. Fine, not a problem. Cool. But I've had an incident this morning which makes me laugh. And it's not about a customer this time, it's about another business. Now, where in the area where I am, there are 3 farms, all with the same name, and all of them have small businesses on, like this one here. And there's one that's about 2 miles away, and quite often, I mean, I'm Unit 4 here, and he's Unit 4 at his farm with the same name. And the only difference between our 2 addresses is the last 3 digits of our postcode. And it's quite common that couriers will accidentally deliver my stuff up to him or his stuff here. And if that happens, I used to have an agreement with the other business owner that if that was happened, if it was his parcel that came here, he'd come and collect it, and if it was my parcel up there, I'd go collect it. That way we're not putting each other out. And that's fine, and that's worked for years. It's usually Amazon that messes up. I don't know why their system... It's because they don't use postcode. They start with the first line of the address, I think, on their system. So when they put it into their system, the first Unit 4 Glebe Farm that comes up is where it gets delivered, and you always have a nightmare. Yodel used to be really bad until they changed their system, but yeah. Anyway, that business has moved away, moved into a different unit, and a new tenant has taken over the other one. I come in this morning, and in my parcel box was a package for this new business at that unit, and so I went online, I found their telephone number, I called him up and I said, look, I've had a parcel delivered for you, you need to come and get it. And he said to me, oh, would you mind hanging on to it for me? I'm going away tomorrow and I won't be back till the new year. And I thought, no, absolutely not. I'm not a free storage facility. It's your parcel, not mine. So I said, you've got 2 options. You can either come and collect it today or I'll just leave it outside. Up to you. And he got really arsey with me, as though it was my problem and my fault that his parcel got delivered here. I was like, I'm doing you a favour. I've called you to tell you I've got it, so you haven't got to work out where your missing parcel is. And now he wants me to store it for at least a couple of weeks until he can be bothered to come and collect it. So I said, no, you got to collect it today, or I'll just leave it outside, and then it's no longer my problem. And he got really arsey with me. And I think the cheek of it, the absolute cheek of it, because if my parcel got delivered to him and he rang me, I'd be up there within 10 minutes to collect it, without doubt. 1, because I always want my parcels, and 2, I'd never want to impose that on somebody else. So yeah, I've made a new enemy. We'll see what happens. And he was going, oh, it's really inconvenient, I'm going to get someone else to come down and collect it. Not my problem. It's not my problem. Run your business properly, do what's right, don't put other people out, come and get your parcel. So yeah, that's the rant for the week. I've just finished putting together the final limited edition, or limited run, I keep saying limited edition, limited run 57 Tweed amp, all put together now. It's looking great. Really, really happy with this one. It's looking smart, it's all come together really nicely. It sounds great too as well. So that's now all done. Celestion 100 speaker in the back. Customers opted for a super long speaker cable as well, so you can connect it to, a attenuator or an aux box or whatever it is that he wants to do with it. But yeah, that's now all done. So we can get this one boxed up and shipped out. Before I do that, I do need to give it a final play test, but that's going to be tomorrow morning because I want it to sit overnight. And then I can recheck all the hardware, make sure that's all tight. It's going to be quite cold tonight, so everything's going to shrink. And then obviously when it warms back up, it's going to contract. I want to make sure that nothing is going to rattle or buzz or anything like that. So in the morning, I'll give it a final nut and bolt check and box it up so the customer can have it. Back on this camera angle. Right, midnight hour says, question for you, Chris. The vintage power wiring with the death cap. Is it peculiar to Fender, or did others do it? No, others did it as well, but it's most famous for Fenders. Mainly North American amps, you'll find those on. A lot of old radios and radiograms and things like that as well would have them. But yeah, mainly Fenders. You mainly see them on Fenders because they're the most popular amps and they're the ones that come in. God, that sun's bright today, isn't it? Hold on. That mainly come in to workshops and therefore they're seen more than others. There you go. That's better. So yeah, there are other brands that do them as well. Top of my head, I can't remember, but I'm sure I'll find some examples. But it was being able to switch the live and the neutral round for lowest buzz. A great idea on paper, but just so dangerous. Right, big post time. Just had a delivery come in from one of my suppliers, and it is a load of chassis. Absolute ton of chassis. I'll show you what I've ordered. Oh yeah, and some Fawn Tolex as well. Right, so what have we got then? That's 7 chassis. First of all, I've got another of the Tweed style 5e3 sized blank chassis that I use for my Americana builds. And I also used on those limited run 57 Tweeds. So it's always good to have one in stock ready to go, because I've just used the last one up. Or I've started using the last one up. So that one's there. I've got 3 of these. I'll show you these ones first. These are... So this is the chassis I use for the Ainsley Lister Signature, and it's got outward folding flanges, right? This chassis here is exactly the same size, but it's got inward folding flanges. See, if I put those next to each other, you can see they are, if you line them up, they are the same size, right? Just the flanges that are different. And that means you can do different things with them, which is really cool. So, got 3 of those, and 2 of these are for something new. One of them is for a build on, basically I'm doing a PR35 build in this style chassis because the customer wants it in a different size cabinet. So this one is going to need to get the corners welded up because it's going to have some quite hefty transformers on there. So yeah, that's going to go for welding. Probably get these 2 done at the same time, even though they won't need it. And then these are the same spec chassis as these, but they are slightly smaller in length and width, same height. But they are, you can see it's a slightly smaller chassis. So you can do some cool things with those as well. Now these won't need to be welded up because these are for a new project as well. Democrati says, what is the device you use to monitor the wall consumption? I think they're sold under the Kill-A-Watt brand. If you search Kill-A-Watt, kill-a-watt, as in how many watts out the wall, on Amazon, on eBay, or somewhere like that, they come up. I don't think that one is the actual kilowatt brand. I think it's a knockoff, but I've been using it for years. It works great. It's just a great monitoring device. I can check the wall voltage, the mains frequency, power consumption, and that can be in voltage, amps, or watts, which is good. And it's just a great little device. Yeah, so search kilowatt and you'll find it. Quick update on the 2 missing amps from 18, 19 months ago now. Is it now 20 months? It might be. I can't say much for at the time being, other than I've had to get the police involved because there's clearly something weird and fishy going on. But when I have more information and I can tell you more, I will explain everything. But yeah, I've had to get the police involved and to do some investigation. And the final cornford of the year. I don't know why we've had such a run on cornfords lately, but here you go. This is a Hellcat. Now, this one is in, the customer says, hasn't been used in a few years. And he seems to remember the last time he used it, it did start cutting out and had low volume. So, now I can't remember if he told me he's then not used it because of that, or it was just something that was doing and he's not used it for another couple of reasons, but I don't know. So Hellcat, 2 inputs, high and low. Looks like there's 2 channels, a modern and vintage, treble middle bass tone stack, 2 master volumes and reverb with an on switch and a standby switch. So pretty standard affair. No handle on this one. I don't know where that's gone. Cabinet's got a couple of interesting stains and marks on it. You know, it has been stored somewhere, so a couple of war wounds. Yeah, overall, not bad. There is, I mean, you can see on camera, these aren't shadows, I don't know. Oh, no, they are shadows. Okay, ignore me. They look like brown staining on the front there. Right, let's spin the cabinet around. I am going to get a Lazy Susan. Thanks to the chap who suggested that to me for doing this. I think it would be really helpful. Problem is, I'm going to get quite a large one, so you don't get any overhang. But here we go. So, last passed the safety inspection, 27th of August 2011. So, okay, if that was the last time it was checked, it has been sat for a while. But yeah, standard input on the back. Mains fuse, HT fuse, speaker selector, 4, 8 and 16, 2 sockets, foot switch, effects loop, serial number, Hotel Charlie 0043. HC stands for Hellcat, most likely. Okay, do not expose to rain or moisture. And in the back, what can we see? A quad of EL84s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 preamp valves. We've got a reverb transformer there, most likely, because that's the reverb connectors. 2 filter caps there. And then 2 transformers. Right, let's get this thing apart and having a look, because it's been sat for a while. Obviously, I'm not going to be plugging this in until I've done a visual inspection. Quite a bit of dust in there, isn't there? Right, okay. Shall I go get a mask on? Well, thankfully, it's not too dusty inside, unlike the outside. Is that a Martin King signature? I think it is. 25th of October 2002. Really cool, classic design. So at the moment, we're just doing a visual inspection, visual check, to see if there's anything that stands out as being immediately obvious as to why customer said it was dropping output and had low volume. Nothing immediately stands out. Don't see many or any burnt components. Maybe some slight discoloration to that resistor. Or is it another shadow? Probably another shadow. Okay, so nothing stands out. Let's pop it on the test bench. Stel says, I think the IEC socket would be less fiddly if it was rotated through 90 degrees. Is there a reason it is the way it is? Yes, well, you've got to go back and watch a couple of videos ages and ages ago where I was spacing out the chassis in the cabinet to fit around the massive end belt of the silver Celestion 100 speaker. And to make sure I had clearance for both of the power valves and the rectifier valve, I had to shift them all across to give everything clearance. Now, because of that, and me not wanting to use a fixed mains cable, a hardwired cable, and always wanting to use an IEC socket, it meant that everything gets shifted over, and to create the spacing that you need, because you still need to have minimum spacing between every component. That's the way the socket is orientated. If it was 90 degrees through, then it would interfere with the rectifier socket, which is no good. So it's simply a spacing issue. You always want to try and give things as much space and as clearance as possible, which is what I'm doing. It just means that that one nut is ever so slightly difficult to get to. You can get to it once the transformer is in with a set of needle nose. And in fact, if you had those slightly, the needle nose have got a curved tip on them, you can get onto it quite easily. But it's just problem is I've also got massive hands, right? They are huge. They are way oversized for me anyway. Monstrous hands. So it just means getting in tight spaces is more fiddly. So that's why I do the IEC socket before the transformer goes in. Just to make it a little bit easier on myself. But yeah, that's all it is. But what a good question. Thanks for asking. Right, so usual affair then. We're going to soft start it on the bench through the light bulb limiter. You see I've got my switch in restriction mode. I'm measuring at the reservoir cap, coming straight off the bridge rectifier. So it goes from the bridge rectifier up to the HT fuse, then down to here. So I'm just going to measure at this point. Not going to use a standby switch. We're just going to fire it up straight away. The light bulb is going to do its thing. We've got a load connected to it, and then hopefully everything will settle down. And if so, then we can take a voltage measurement. So here we go then. Inrush current, and then it dims down. All looking good so far. High voltage is coming up, 330, 340. As the valves start to conduct, that will start to drop again, and then the bulb will start to glow brighter. So, peaked at 347 in restriction mode, and it'll start to drop as the valves start to conduct. They're coming up to temperature now. Now they're conducting. Drawing currents, the voltage drops, the bulb is glowing brighter. Exactly what we expect, and we normally see around 35 to 40 volts in restriction mode. Watts, sorry. And there you go. Bang on. So that's going to settle to, well, it's settling at around 230 in restriction mode. Normally, restriction mode is, I mean, it depends on the amp, but 90 to 130 volts lower than full power mode. No smoke, no fire, no excessive current draw. And that's how easy a soft start is. You don't need a variac, you just need a light bulb limiter. 100 watt bulb in there. Here you go. So that's settled now at 227. I'm going to leave it like this for about 10 minutes. Then we'll come back and see if anything's changed. It's only the 9th of December as I'm filming this, so it's probably a little bit early to talk about plans for next year and what I plan to do and how I want things to work. You can go back and watch a video I put out New Year's this year. I think I was driving in the van and I recorded that, about the plans I had for 2024 and what I wanted to achieve and all that kind of stuff. And as is always the case, things change, things happen. Now, I haven't, in quite a while actually, I need to look back and check, brought a new amplifier to market in quite a long time. I've done the limited runs and the special editions and things like that, but I haven't had a truly new amp on the market for a while. And so I think that's going to be the goal. God, that sun again is the... Oh, no, wrong way. I think that's the goal for 2025, is I want to get a new amplifier to market and launched. And I've got a couple of options, one of which, actually it won't be 1 amp, it will be 2. One of which will be the bass amp, okay? The bass amp is happening. The transformers have been wound, they are on the way to me, so I can get that prototype built. The 50 watt bass amp, Deep Riff Mark II, that is coming. And I know a lot of you are interested in that, so that will be coming in 2025, I promise. So that's second on the priority list at the moment, because there is 1 amp ahead of it which is going to come first, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm going to have at least 2 new amplifiers next year brought to market. The demand and interest that I've had over the 1 watt amps has been pretty impressive, actually. I've had a lot of inquiries about not just those, not just the 1-800 head, but also, you know, 1 watt versions of other classic amps. Now, the problem with them is twofold, really. One is that consumers often associate lower wattage with lower prices, and they say, well, why is a 1 watt amp just, you know, almost as expensive as a 12 watt amp or a 15 watt amp, for example? And you think, well, you've still got the same number of components, often the same number of valves, transformers, pots, all that sort of stuff. And yes, some of those components might be slightly cheaper, but not enough where the customer says, oh, well, yeah, that's cheap enough for it to make sense in my head. So unless you know, like I did with the 1-800 head, unless I do them in bulk, in quantity, and hit a certain price, so my buying power is stronger when I buy all those components in, it can be very difficult to make these things affordable. So, for example, you know, my PR18 in the UK price is £2,800. Okay. If I was going to do a 1 watt version of that amplifier, it'd only be a couple of £100 cheaper. Now, I don't know many customers who are willing to shell out £2,500 for a 1 watt combo, right? That's a very difficult sale to make. So yeah, that's a tricky one. But I do want to explore that further, those 1 watt amps. I think there's a lot of value in them, and there's a lot of good tone and sound and enjoyment in me making them as well. That's always important, because if I'm not enthused to do something, then it might not happen. Also, I've had a lot of inquiries about Ed's RK50. There it is. A lot of people saying, could I do one of them for them too? And I think, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Maybe I could. Now, the problem is that for Ed's one, it's a straight up RK100 copy, as it were, although it's 50 watt output. If I was going to properly commercialize it, you know, I want to respect people's IP, and stuff like that. So I would probably make further changes to it, but we'll see. You can always do them as custom builds, and then nobody cares, right? So that's the sort of thing. Have I got any new pedals on the horizon? Not yet. I've got a couple of ideas in my head. So I really go back and forth with pedals because I enjoy making them. They are fun to do, and I like the point-to-point hand-wired nature of doing those pedals. They are fun. They are enjoyable. But the type of pedal that I want to do, you know, that classic saying, only do something if you do it properly, right? The type of pedal I want to make and I would love to bring to market and do a really cool Rift version of, I simply couldn't do as a hand-wired thing, right? It just wouldn't work. Well, it would work, but it would be so expensive that just not possible, right? Just wouldn't. It's just not viable commercially. Um, we're talking guitar amp money, right? In terms of how long these things take to make. Yeah. Oh, tremolo cat. So at that point, then you're looking at PCB stuff. Now, am I against PCB pedals? No, absolutely not. If you get them right, and fine. But then it's a whole can of worms that it opens up. And do I really want to get into that at this moment in time? Probably not. So I don't think there's going to be any other pedals brought to market. As you know, I discontinued the EL34. No plans to bring that back at the moment. But the Elysium still sells so well. It's a great pedal to have in my lineup. Low gain fuzz. It's really simple. It sounds great. Everyone loves it. So I think we're just going to stick with that for the time being. But this year has been so good for me, both on the sales front, apart from a couple of slow periods, but on the repair side of the business as well, and that's mainly down to YouTube. That I've taken on so much more work that I really don't have time to develop much more stuff. So 2025 really is going to be my number one priority amp. That's the one that Ainsley helped me put the speaker on. We're going to get that out, get that launched, and then the bass amp is after that. After that, what do I want to do? What do I want to do amp-wise? I've got a couple of ideas that I think will be good. But it needs to be something in that 25-30 watt range, I think. I think that's where it needs to be. Can always do variants on my other amps, so my Plexi 18 is always a good seller. I want to do a 6v6 version of that. In fact, I could put that on the website now and they'd sell. Wouldn't even have to build and demonstrate one. That you can always get those done. So I might just do that. In fact, I would argue it would probably sound better than the EL84 version, but we'll see. I've got a couple of one-off builds that I want to do, that I'm really inspired to do. A couple of versions of classic amps that I just want to get built and sold so people can enjoy them. I've got a prototype sitting up there that I did for somebody else years ago. I've mentioned it before. That I would like to get done and finished, but I just don't have the motivation to do that at the moment. So yeah, we'll see. This rant's going on for quite a while, 9.5 minutes so far. And there was one other amp. What was it? Can't remember. I'll remember at some point. But if I do, I'll let you know. 10 minutes have passed. It's now stabilised at 225 at the reservoir cap. 36.2 watts out of the wall. And that's, it's kind of happy there. So let's give it full power. I'm happy to give this thing full power. No issues whatsoever. Let's go. So it's come up to 393. So what did I say? About 130 volts higher, didn't I? Depending on the amp. Our mains consumption, 104 watts. We'll just monitor that for a bit, see if anything changes. If it really starts to shoot up quite high, then we'll have to have a think. But 104 watts, less than half an amp at 240 volts. In fact, it will tell me, won't it? Mains voltage today, 242, and we're pulling half an amp. Right, cool, okay. That's stabilised. 390. No smoke, no fire, no smells of burning, no weird sounds. I can hear hum through the speaker down there, so we'll put it back onto load. We'll inject a signal. So we're into the high input, I think. Yep, high input. So we'll go mid on full. Master volume's on full. And we'll just advance the gain control and see what we get. Not much. Let me just check I'm not being an idiot. Bear with me. Yes, I was. I had the wrong master volume up. So let's have a look then. Oh. Bum bum ba-dum bum bum. Okay, so are we on? Not a nice sine wave, is it? How do I get it to go? See, that's the modern channel. I don't want the modern channel. I want the vintage channel. So I'm going to need to trigger the foot switch. One moment, please. Yeah, so I've just used a test lead just to jump the foot switch. And we're now in the vintage channel. And we're doing 14 volts, although it's not happy, into 8 ohms, which puts us 24.5 watts. 8 ohms, 24.5 watts. But it's really not happy. Look, that's doing all sorts of fun things. So this. Yeah, you see, it's not happy at all, is it? We're getting some very strange artifacts. I mean, so this is a 3 EL84 amp. So we're looking at probably 30 to 36 watts. So 30 watts would be 15.5 volts, which is what it's doing there, into 8 ohms. Just doesn't look happy, does it? Does not look happy one bit. But clearly nothing's burnt. Nothing looks broken. So I think we'll start with the basic things. We'll go through, we'll clean all the pins on the valves, we'll clean all the sockets, especially that effects loop. In fact, hasn't made a difference. But we'll still go to that, we'll clean everything up, check all the grounding points, and then come back to it. But yeah, that's not a healthy sine wave. You've got some, you got the that really strange kink there, but it's at different points going up than it is down. What we'll also do is we'll take a full voltage map of the output stage. We'll start there. These 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Check we've got nothing weird going on there either, and see where we end up. Right, I didn't touch anything at all, but our output has just dropped down to 7.5, 8. So we'll call it 8. Oh, 8 into 8 is 8 watts, isn't it? So it kind of dropped quite dramatically there. I didn't touch anything. 107 watts from the wall. B plus has remained roughly where it should be. Right, I'm going to take the voltages and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the numbers are as follows. Our anode cathode voltage is a cathode biased amp, by the way. 366 pretty much across the board. 6 and 7 were 6.6. 8 and 9 was 6.7. Fine. Our screen voltage 356, 357, 356, 356. Okay, consistent across the board. Voltage across the cathode resistor 13.57 volts, and the value of that resistance, of that resistor, 97.8 ohms. It is in the amp a 100 ohm 7 watt resistor, but its actual value is 97.8. So as we all know by now, Ohm's law, V equals IR, Joule's law, watts or power is voltage times current. So we want to know the current running through that resistor. So voltage divided by resistance, 13 every time, 13.57 divided by 97.8 means we've got a total in amps of 0.138 amps, or 138 milliamps. Now there's 4 valves, and we're assuming that the current is split equally across all 4. So we divide by 4. Divide by 4 means each valve is running at around 34.5 milliamps. Got that? Great. That means our power, anode plus G2, remember the cathode is the anode and the screen. So we times that figure by the anode to cathode voltage, times by 366, means we are running at 12.7 watts. Okay. These EL84s are rated. Actually, they are the Russian ones. Let me just get the data sheet for these. Yep, as I thought, 14 watts on the anode, and then you're allowed a further 2.2 watts on the screen dissipation. Well, look, I mean, combined, we're only at 12.7. So there, let's just call it 14. Divide by 14 means they're running at 90.6%. Okay, so biased, actually relatively cool. Not a problem. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and go through and give this thing a proper service and a cleanup. I will also do a voltage map of the preamp socket, but I needed to confirm the output stage was running as it should do. So quite happy with that. Yeah, really good. But that's the inside of the Hellcat. I know we've had one on the channel before, but it's always nice to see them. And it's nice to show the procedure of soft starting one of these after a long period of time. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. As always, please give this video a thumbs up. All your comments and questions down below. Didn't really get many this week. That's why there weren't that many to answer. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. Join the channel like these guys have if you're feeling super generous. And I will catch you all at the next one.